This podcast has been brought to you by the patrons at patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv. Donate $5 or more and you'll get an episode of Abject Suffering every single month. You'll get access to the Slack channel and you'll get access to the early feed, so you can download all the podcasts a day earlier than all the less cooler people than you. Thank you, everybody that supported and makes this podcast possible, and I hope you enjoy the episode.
Big talk. Come on. Go. Big talk. Come on. Power. Big talk. Come on. Big talk. Come on. Go. Big talk. Come on. Big talk. Come on. Go. Big talk. Come on. Big talk. Come on. Big talk. Come on. Incredible power. Incredible power. Incredible.
I'm Jeremy Greer.
And I'm Gary Butterfield.
And this is Days of Future Cast, a podcast where we are covering the X-Men animated series from the early 1990s. How are you today, Gary?
You know, I'm medium.
It's about the best.
Right.
That's remarkable that you're even that high.
I top out at about 70% anymore. and I would say that, so judging on that curve, like I'm probably at like real life 50%, but that has now become, you know, kind of an average.
Yeah, exactly. You're 7 out of 10 in a sea of, you know, other 8 out of 10s. There's no 10 out of 10 anymore.
Yeah, there's no 10. I'm 5 out of 10 in a sea of 7 out of 10s, but I'm not 3 out of 10. So
yeah. At least now, at least for the episodes we're covering today, we don't have to like compare them to what's happening in the real world like we had to do a lot for season 2. At least this is
surprised.
This is nothing to do with the real world.
No, this is I mean we just said this, and not to be the guy who takes things that I just said and then repeats it for the podcast audience, but I'm extremely worried about this season of the X-Men animated series, Jeremy.
Yeah, these didn't out of the gate. We're not doing too hot. Like we're these are very poor episodes.
I mean, out of the 3, that's not saying that much. There's only 3, but like this is definitely the worst foot they've started out on.
Yeah, these aren't good. I think this is the time, and we probably need to spend a little time talking about this because we've had a couple of questions, but I believe it was around this time that they started having a really, really bad problem with their production. So like there's episodes that are all out of order. The animation is getting kind of terrible. Like there was a couple of times where I was really into the animation in season 2, but like there's some faces that people pull in these next 2 episodes that are just atrocious looking, like just awful.
It actually, so I know it gets worse. So I know season 5 is actually really, really shitty because I've watched some season 5 episodes from it. The famous still from that is like Caveman Wolverine out in the woods. And that's, extremely bad. In this where it's like, it's weird. So there's still some care being put into it. I think some of the animation is actually kind of cool. And some of the stills are actually more detailed and, than they used to be. Like not necessarily better, but like people's faces have more lines on them. And if it's a distance, if it's like a middle shot, everyone kind of universally looks shitty.
Yep.
I find a couple of the close-ups look like more detailed, at least, if not better, than they did in the last season. So it's like a mixed bag. Like some things kind of look a little bit, maybe a little bit better or just different. Some things definitely look worse, but it's getting sketch. It's getting pretty sketch. I was just gonna say there's so many episodes in this season, so like, is it a cost-cutting thing? Because usually you don't hear about, like, let's lower the quality across the board. You hear about, like, let's cut episodes. But there are more episodes in this season.
Yeah, it's like they got an expanded order. And then, like, also... it really seems like they just could not handle it. Like somebody upstairs decided, no, we need more than 13 episodes. Let's do 22 this season. And then like they just could not handle that kind of output. So.
With the same amount of pencils and ink.
Exactly. With the same budget, same pencil, same ink. Yeah, same writers.
Because these first 2 episodes are extremely bad. I remember liking the Phoenix Saga, which is the thing we start tackling next episode. As a kid, that doesn't mean that's good, but I remember liking it.
I have not dug into the Phoenix Saga. I'm looking forward to that because Space X-Men is ridiculous. But look, before we get into the main episode, we're going to kind of change the way we covered these episodes this season because we have more episodes. And because this show takes up quite a bit of time on the editing and the recording and things, we're actually going to be covering like smaller numbers of episodes. Like last season, we were up to like 4 episodes per podcast, which is kind of crazy. So this season is going to be mostly it's going to be like 2 episodes per podcast, and some maybe a couple of episodes where we're covering 3. So like they're going to be shorter, but they're going to be jam packed with just as much Gambit as you possibly could imagine. So
it's not just a consideration in recording, because it's, we don't record this that often. It's not super demanding. The idea also is that this is when the cartoon starts doing these 5-part arcs.
Yes.
And those are hard to split up. Like it would be unsatisfying to do 4-part, like doing all 5 of them at once would be really exhausting for us and for you. And then doing like 4 of them in one, that's kind of frustrating. So doing sets of 2s and 3s feels about right. And then I can't necessarily speak for Jeremy, but I like doing the show, and I'm not worried. Like the show can continue. We can figure out ways to do stuff with it, for as long as need be. But leaving the actual X-Men 90s animated series will be an uncomfortable moment.
It's going to be nerve wracking. Like I'm worried about what we're going to be recovering after this, because like the mind for hilarity, but also like that kind of adoration the X-Men animated series has for me it's a very fine line, and finding that can be kind of difficult. Like I think we've talked about this on the show before, but like X-Men Evolution just might be too good. Like I don't want to make fun of stuff that's great. If something's doing something really nice.
If we're just recapping a good show, like there's a lot of podcasts that do that. So
I'm not interested in recaps. Yeah.
Yeah. So the idea being like we kick this can down the road, we stretch out the 90s X-Men animated series, which was always the premise of this. The movies, were kind of a bonus thing. We definitely fill out the movies because I think those have the nice mix of like reverence and ridiculous. Mm-hmm. And then after that, we'll figure something out. And that could be, we haven't really talked about it because we don't have to make that decision yet. We've got, almost a year. But that could even be like, maybe me and Jeremy do something different. Sure. It just takes the slot. Like we figure out something that like has that good mix. We're
going to do one comic book per episode, and we'll turn it to a daily podcast.
Oh my God.
We'll start from like the Uncanny number 1 or 275 or whatever, and just go through it. Do the thing.
I think doing that wouldn't make sense, but I do think that something like because it is so easy to find, you can get stuff on Comixology and Marvel, but you can also, if it's not found on there, you can usually just kind of torrent it. I think that it would be a fun idea to do a podcast if we did move into comics, to just be like, what are the worst X-Men arcs, and open that up to some kind of poll. Cause like talking about like that Chuck Austin run of X-Men, or talking about, the shitty, Colossus miniseries where it turns out he's a, son of Rasputin, things like that. Like that would be pretty fun. I think, I think we could figure out something that has the kind of, our not that I don't think, we're good at talking about things that are good as well, but the fun parts of the show is just how obscene and ridiculous this cartoon is.
100%.
I would hate to give that up. So if we move forward with something different, we want to find something that does that. But this is ridiculously premature. We're just letting you know some of the thinking behind the idea of kind of decompressing a little bit.
Yeah. And we're always super into feedback. So like if you guys have ideas or things that you think we need to cover, like send it our way. There's a variety of ways to do that. Like if you go to daysoffuturecast.com/contact, like this probably has all of the links to various social medias as well as a contact form now. So you can just like send us stuff directly. And then we'll take a look at that stuff and cover it and do the thing. Speaking of that, if you go to daysoffuturecast.com/schedule, this will be like all of season 3 will be outlined as far as release dates and which episodes of the podcast are covering which episodes of the season and all of that stuff. So if you want to watch along with the show and are wondering when coverage is going to come out, like that's your spot, that's your place to be on there.
Yeah. And kind of a final, admin note, just kind of a weird thing. So we're recording these in kind of a weird order. We haven't done the movie episode for the end of season 2. And we haven't done the Q&A. So let's say like you sent in a question that is like a super game changer, or, something literally happens, like the country shuts down and it's like, why aren't those guys talking about it? It's because we're recording this on the 25th of January, we're recording this in advance. We record them out of order because it just ends up making sense schedule wise. So,
just to date this, we are pre-Mexican Wall. So
yes. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So when that beautiful dream works out, but I'm sure we'll solve all the problems.
Of course.
When this country finally gets the magic beans that they bought, That they
definitely magic something.
yeah.
So let's get
anywho.
I think that'll wrap us up on admin.
Previously on X-Men.
To catch us up on what's been happening for the last 2 seasons, the X-Men are a group of heroes / terrorists that all have mutant powers and a desire to save the world. The team is Cyclops, Jean Grey, Storm, Rogue, Beast, Gambit, Jubilee, Wolverine, sometimes Colossus, and led by Professor Xavier. They have fought off magnetized mutants, time-traveling weirdos, aliens addicted to reality television, super mutants out to mix and match mutant bloodlines, external swap monsters, and terrible accents. Most recently, they have rescued their leader and founder, Charles Xavier, who was trapped in the Savage Land by Mr. Sinister and General Boredom. So that's pretty much leading us into season 3.
And Lieutenant TDM and
yes,
Private Fashion in the back. The important thing is we're kind of back where we started at the beginning of season 2. Scott and Jean were going to get married. They didn't get married. Professor Xavier was there, but he went missing, and now he's back. Not a lot has changed. Season 2, and we talked about this a lot, is a series of short stories focusing on individual characters. But it wasn't trying to move the actual X-Men mythos kind of forward as a whole. It was kind of the series show. The series started out with a very strong thematic core in season 1. Spent season 2 kind of exploring the characters. Season 3 is when it is trying to get into the grand soap opera side of X-Men. The kind of like the big stories that actually have lasting effect is what they're trying to do. Not that you know that from any of these 2 episodes we're covering today, which are just, preamble trash that kind of go into the bigger stories. But the Phoenix Saga is the quintessential X-Men story. It is the famous X-Men story.
I'm looking forward to that because Phoenix and Dark Phoenix are the big ones, right? But meanwhile, we have to get past all this Wolverine bullshit, which is just excruciating. There's barely anything there's stuff that happens in this that is funny, but there's barely anything worthwhile in these 2 episodes. These were rough to watch, even rougher than normal.
Rough to watch. Extremely rough to watch. These are some of the worst shows in the series. Worst episodes. It's kind of crazy that this is this is the foot they're putting down, and that it can be this bad. And part of it is my own personal. These actually do tie into the Phoenix Saga in the weirdest fucking way.
Yeah,
but they do tie into it. For the most part, it's focused on Wolverine past stuff, and I think that's garbage. You don't you're bored by it.
Yep.
But it obviously sold. It was huge. There's a whole series of comics where Wolverine was patched and he hung out in Madripoor, and all this Wolverine samurai shit was popular and is an important part of the mythos. It has to be dealt with. But the idea of opening your season with a 2-parter about it, that the rest of it is nonsense, is just really, really misguided, I think. There is an audience for this, but this is not what the X-Men is about, and probably should have been a mid-season filler app.
Yeah, I can think of a million different ways for the spaceship that's going to eventually get us to the Phoenix to be a thing. Does not have to involve Morlocks, does not have to involve Deathstrike, does not have to involve the Reapers. All of this stuff is so bad. Yeah. It doesn't even make sense from the beginning. It's really, really horrible. Give us our episode synopsis before we get into it.
Let's get into it before we get into these generalities, because it is just kind of shocking. I've actually watched these episodes twice, and it is such a fucking bummer. So we're looking at S03E01 Out of the Past Part 1. When Wolverine's former love, a Japanese woman named Yuriko, stumbles into the Morlock tunnels, she discovers that an alien treasure is buried somewhere in the area. She lures Wolverine and the X-Men into the tunnels and hopes that she can use their abilities to uncover the treasure. So we start off because how many of these episodes just start with the Morlocks fucking getting themselves into trouble? It's kind of the standard Morlock wipe to because we got Leech, our little guy,
our old buddy, who's amazingly still alive after everything that's been going on in this world.
Especially he's being chased by Reavers now. We got him in the notes as Reapers. I just want to make sure nobody writes in their Reavers are the name of these guys. And these guys were like big X-Men villains in their Australia era.
Wait, did I just write? I wrote Reapers this entire every single time I wrote it. I wrote down Reapers.
I noticed it. I'm like, wait, is that a True Detective thing or not True Detective? Whatever, True Blood. Is that something from another show or just...
I don't know. I don't know what I was thinking. Of course, they're Reavers. I don't know where I got Reavers from.
I don't know. Well, not Reamers. That's a different villain.
And that's a different podcast.
Yeah, that's the place they close. What you mean you closed down Remus? Gambit still got punch card. But he's being chased by the Reavers, who are ridiculous. They're cyborgs. One of them has tank treads for feet, and they're Australian and they're mercenaries, and they're one of the more boring X-Men villains that have ever been.
Yeah, they're the cyborgness means that in the cartoon, like Wolverine gets to cut their arms off and things
constantly, dude.
Yeah,
chop so many arms in this episode.
That's pretty much what they're.
I like.
Yeah, I also like
chopping.
That the way they fix it is to pick up the old arm and just to shove it back on in there. just grok and just like until it sticks.
Like they're made of Play-Doh.
None of these guys are very remarkable except for the half tank guy. And I think the half tank guy is pretty hysterical, but also in the dumbest way. Like, picture literally the bottom of a tank, like just the giant treads. Like, it looks exactly like that. With instead of like the gun coming up, it's just the top half of a man.
Yeah, it's just a member of Static X or something like that. Like it's
a wear tank, Gary. It's a wear tank.
Tank tar. Yeah,
it's tank tar.
He's also because we talk a lot about anybody who has kind of wheels for feet, like stairs is going to be a really hard thing for them. Like uneven ground is going to be a thing for this guy. Like, how does this guy get anywhere?
How did he get into the sewers? Like, because I'm sure I don't think there's a handicap ramp to go into the sewers.
And there should be, but there's not.
Not where the Morlocks live. Like, I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's just some abandoned shit back there. So
the Morlocks are not ADA compliant, is what we're getting at.
OSHA, get on this. Yeah. Where are you at?
Yeah. And they're being led, so they're chased by the Reavers, who are being led by Lady Deathstrike. And Lady Deathstrike sucks. I've never liked Lady Deathstrike. I think it's one of the worst designs in X-Men.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think she looks very uncool. I think her hands are stupid.
Yeah, her hands are like these like oversized, like standing up, but my hands go down, like my arms, my wrist are at my like waist, right? But my hands go all the way down to like my thighs, like all the way, like not thighs, calves, like all the way down to the bottom of my legs. Like
she has, big, long, sharp fingers is her thing, but not claws. They're just like it's all one big flesh tone. Like, I have no idea what's going on with her biology. Like she doesn't have nails anymore. How did this happen from what happened to you? Her backstory is boring. I think Lady Deathstrike is extremely bad.
Yes. And like the lines that they give her here too, it's very, very over the top. And like for a series that like I really appreciate when they get over the top, but like this leans way more towards the Storm side, where like everything that she says is just punctuated with the whoa, I'm doing it for revenge, like all this bullshit. Yeah, it's just
she's very big, except instead of being like hysterical like Storm, she's like angry, like Japanese accent.
Yeah, which is also not great.
It feels extremely racist. Like everything with Lady Deathstrike just seems pretty rough, So Leech is delivering this device, which is a gun. I'll just put this out there, like it is a gun, to Callisto. And Callisto says, with this gun, I'm going to be able to get into the treasure trove and become the true leader of the Morlocks again. So like already we're starting like fucking ankle deep and stupid. It's just you just have to win this fight. So like, is Callisto's plan now to use alien technology to destroy Storm?
Yeah, like
it's very strange and just kind of starts pretty late.
I bet if you just wrote Storm an email and just was like, hey, like, what do you think about succeeding and letting me taking back over my people? Like, let's have this conversation. Yeah. I bet Storm would be open to dialogue with you, right?
Yeah, Storm will play Scrabble with you to do this. Like the X-Men don't want to kill you.
Storm is definitely someone that cheats at Words with Friends. Like that's 100%.
And why does she want to? Like Storm is a pretty absentee leader of the Morlocks. Like she's already effectively the leader of the Morlocks, and why is that a crown worth having?
And
Like,
and also she's an absentee X-Man. Like her and Rogue are nowhere to be found in these 2 episodes, which I have not watched ahead yet. I'm a little bit behind. So like maybe they're doing something else and that's explained in the 3rd episode, but they're just not in these 2. We don't see them at all.
Presumably the next time we see Storm is in episode 3 in her weird pajamas. Rogue does not show up in that episode, which makes me think that Rogue is off on a mission. Storm is literally sleeping through these 2 episodes, though.
Excellent. Good. Great. Good.
So the Reavers attack.
Yeah, and the Reavers have these net guns, which like not only like they shoot the thing and it's like a yellow glowing. I don't know. My color transfer on these rips that I have are so bad. Like my DVDs look okay, but these rips look terrible. Like so, it looked yellow green on my TV. Who knows what it was supposed to be?
It's kind of goo.
Yeah. And so they like shoot out these net guns and, paste these Morlocks to the wall with them. And that promptly makes them go to sleep too. So they're like, sedative net guns, I guess you could call them.
Well, and the Morlocks put up a fight. Like there's a weird, like also Cyclops, the one-eyed guy.
One-eyed guy.
Lasers out of his eyes.
But he doesn't shoot lasers out of his eye. He shoots lasers out of his eye that's underneath the patch. Like that's what it's holding back his energy beams. Yeah. It's really goofy.
So after the Reavers subdue a bunch of the Morlocks, my favorite part of this episode, maybe not my favorite part because there's a lot of ridiculousness, is Lady Deathstrike making her grand entrance through a waterfall of shit and piss.
Why are you walking through that? That's so gross.
She does like the dramatic villain walk through this literal waterfall of urine. She's just like, yes,
you were in the sewers, lady. Like, come on.
It's so gross.
It's so gross.
And she does it like it's the most baller thing that anyone's ever done. And it's just like, oh, Deathstrike. Like, you are grotesque. Wolverine is not going to have anything to do with you if you keep walking through sewage water, girl. You gotta stop rubbing shit and piss on yourself.
Yeah, step 1 to getting the man, and I read this in Cosmopolitan, so I know it's true, is not to coat yourself in shit and piss.
Literally head to toe.
Let me give you this quiz. I say, are you compatible with Wolverine? Question 1: are you covered in shit and piss?
Yeah, I don't like that, bub.
Wolverine has sensitive smells.
Yeah, I can smell it.
Yeah. So Callisto, not Callisto, but Deathstrike kind of tortures Leech into telling.
She totally doesn't. Leech just says, Callisto made me do it. Look at our treasure.
Oh, I guess that's right. Yeah. I guess I was reading into something more interesting happening here.
No, Leech is a little shit. Like Leech immediately is just like, well, yeah, fuck my family. So.
And then there's just a giant spaceship in the sewers, Gary. Like,
yeah, what is that doing there? And why is Callisto hiding a spaceship?
It does not make any sense. Like, did the people that built the old subway tunnels, like back in the 1920s, just see this and are like, not going to worry about that. We're just going to end the subway tunnel here. Like, none of this makes sense. But I like this next part too, because Lady Deathstrike says, oh, well, this is going to help me out in my revenge. And then tries to slash it open. Is kind of fried, like her circuits get fried or whatever. Like she kind of goes crazy. And then that makes her understand that, what we need is actually someone who's has adamantium claws and is also human. Okay.
So what are you?
Yeah. What?
This is so bad. And like the Reaver's like, let's shoot it. She's like, I don't pay you to think. Nobody is thinking.
Nobody is having any thoughts.
You guys are both literally trying to get revenge on people on the same team. It's like I'm on a revenge, and then someone just runs up and pushes them over and says, "No, I'm going to get revenge first." It is one of the most incoherent, shitty opening plot Gambits that we've ever had. And then
when she hits it though, yeah.
We go to Xavier, and this episode, the next episode, and the third episode, if you like Xavier just kind of screaming into the camera, that's more or less what he does. So much power,
incredible power.
And the voice actor for Xavier isn't bad, except when he has to be in pain or scream out, and then he's just terrible. Otherwise, he's perfectly acceptable.
His voice cracks in this weird way.
He'd be better off if they had just subbed in roars.
Yeah,
just stretch roars out a little bit, do a little pitch shifting, and you're done.
Yeah, man, it's. Okay, so touching that, give some psychic feedback to Xavier. Fair enough.
Yeah, that's fine. Whatever.
Cut to Wolverine, Gambit, and Jubilee playing basketball.
Doing a little b-ball
playing a little b-ball.
Playing a little b-ball.
There's a couple of things I want to point out that happened here in the animation. One, the opening shot, while Gambit and Wolverine are talking, Jubilee is in the background. Her body's not animated, but this like neon yellow or neon green bubblegum she's chewing just keeps inflating and deflating at a regular pace. It's like she's not blowing bubbles or anything. It's going.
It's like she's in a coma and somebody held up a balloon in front of her mouth.
Yeah.
She's perfectly still, but the balloon is going to expand and contract.
It's very, very good. And this whole basketball scene is like, it's really scene of the episode probably.
Easy. Because number one, shirtless Gambit and Wolverine. And both of these are some serious hairy boys. Like Wolverine at least has an excuse. Gambit is just super hairy for no reason. Which I guess he's
very sculpted on too. Like he's very they're very, very buff. And Wolverine out of nowhere is just like, fuck this, and stabs the ball. It's his first move.
Yeah, Gambit shoots the ball. Wolverine jumps up and instead of just hitting it away, which you could totally do with your hand, he just pops it with his claws. What are you doing? How many basketballs do you guys go through?
A big pile of fully inflated basketballs just for spares. And then comms expert Jubilee.
I'm so glad you remembered this. Yes.
Yeah.
Guys, there's a message
on their weird video phone outside, and the way they talk about it is hey, nobody's picking up. I guess it's us. So do the X-Men have an on-call system for things like this? Whatever the universe destroying threat is, just whoever happens to be by a phone has to go handle it solo. It's very, very weird. Plan.
We used to have at my old job, we used to have a phone system, and after hours, it would ring one extension after the other, to try to find if anybody's around. And I can only imagine this working the same way. Here's this $900 phone system that Xavier bought, tacked on some alien technology onto to make video, and now it just when you call the Xavier mansion, it just goes, okay, first the basketball court. Nope. Yep. Storm's office. No. Professor Xavier. Psychic projection. Nope. Not working. No. It just goes through a list, right? Yeah, this is real dumb. And I love Logan's comment right now though, because Leech is on the phone and he's like, X-Men, you need to help me. And he's like,
man, we gotta talk to Storm about who she gives our number to.
Yeah. So Wolverine gets a couple of real good one-liners in these couple episodes. That I really like. But yeah, so Storm keeps sharing the X-Men's number with every sewer mutant she runs into, which is very good. And then it's no, I'm not calling for Storm, I'm calling for Wolverine because of Yuriko. Dun dun dun.
Yeah, and Wolverine has an instant reaction to this, and Leech hangs up, basically. It's okay, you guys need to come. Wolverine takes off, and then Gambit has a great line here, which I put in the notes if you'd like to read, because...
this whole thing stank. And then, Jubilee's he would do it for you, which is didn't we literally just had to go bail Gambit out of his girlfriend trap?
100%. Yes.
This should be some kind of protocol for girlfriend traps in the X-Men universe. Because this is the same thing, and Wolverine did come down for you. He came to stop that wedding. So it's short memory, Gambit.
And Gambit literally says oh, he was only out for himself. I'm dude, he last season, we just covered this.
It's just happened, Gambit.
In a episode Gambit, that I can't believe is saying is better than this one.
Oh, it's so much better. The externally yours is top shelf. This is not shelf.
And here's a good one of these mid scenes here where Wolverine goes off, and the next we cut to him driving into the city in a Jeep in costume, which always cracks me up when they drive normal cars. He parks it on the street and then just goes and jumps down the sewer. He goes into the subway, just walks down. This is really funny.
Starts just and people run from him and stuff. Yeah. It's not people are okay with this. People are pretty, are reacting appropriately, I feel.
Yes. Yes. If you saw a guy in the subway wearing yellow spandex and running with claws, yelling Eureka real loud, you'd probably just go the other way for a little while. I know a lot of New Yorkers are jaded to things that happen on the subway. I get it, but still, come on. If you saw Wolverine in the subway,
he's not well, honey. Don't look. He's not
don't
well.
Don't look. It's not polite.
And just it's also the X-Men's, if they need to look for somebody, their move of literally just like going in a direction, yelling their name. Like it's like with all of the technology at their disposal, it is just go to anywhere near where they're at and just start screaming. Is entirely their move.
And then
flashback.
The flashback. And Gary, this is how bad this episode is they do the like terrible pornography thing where they just literally repeat something you've already seen like you've never seen it before. Like I don't know if you remember like pornography from the late 80s that you were like stealing from someone's VCR or something, like you'd be like okay, wait a minute, didn't he already do this once? Like you would just repeat it. We get all of Wolverine's backstory. Like the only thing that we see new here is that Wolverine was with Yuriko before, in Japan, and saying like, "I have to go. There's some people in Canada that need me." Which, okay.
Which I thought like Wolverine. So the idea that Wolverine volunteered for Weapon X, which I don't remember exactly how it is in the comics, which I should, but I feel like that's in contrast to what we actually. Knew about it. This
is the weird thing because he says people in Canada need me. Then we see him and Maverick, and I can't believe I just remembered Maverick's name.
Congrats.
In a helicopter, and they're landing, and then like soldiers attack them.
In Canada.
In Canada, Wolverine doesn't get back on the helicopter in time, so he's running away. He falls into a hole in the ground. And is captured, and then he's forced to become Wolverine instead of like the action hero that he was before he was Wolverine. I don't know.
And then, but after he becomes Wolverine, he gets recruited for Alpha Flight and like Department H. So what is this thing he's with beforehand? I feel like I think there is like a name for that because there's a couple real boring dudes in that squad, in the Maverick squad, like Bridger and the Six Pack or something like that. They're like old buddies of Cable. I could be getting two things confused, but the idea that he was like, I'm going to go work for a Canadian paramilitary force. Oops, I got trapped by an evil scientist to get ejected to go work for another Canadian paramilitary force is just a little bit too much of a coincidence for me. He just keeps falling backwards into Canadian paramilitary forces. And it's
and then
goofy.
he goes back to Yuriko in Japan, but like she's just disappeared from that house. Like that's kind of always
screaming enough. Like he should have started walking the earth, yelling her name.
It just doesn't. Yeah, all of this is very, very bad. And again, like I just want to repeat, like when we see him get captured by this, Alpha Flight or like Weapon X or whatever, like we see the exact same scene of like the doctor putting him, like the doctor is still very surprised that he has like bone claws for no reason, even though you definitely should have known that. Like it's the same exact scene for a good 3 minutes in a 22-minute episode of television. It's pretty ridiculous, pretty egregious.
And also we just established that after Wolverine got his claws put in, he went and wandered the wilderness and was caught by Alpha Flight and then like taught what books are again.
Yeah.
Like we just saw what happened. So when is this? Like this is after Alpha Flight that he went back to Yuriko? Like how many years is that? Is this something he did on a brief stop before he went and got his costume, but after he learned how to like circumnavigate the room, like the world? Like it's very, very strange to put two Wolverine origin episodes that accomplish a lot of the same purpose like this close to each other.
Yeah. And it's not great storytelling on top of that. Like we don't really need to see a whole lot of this. And here's the thing. We're going to find out later, and I think in just a few minutes, like that Yuriko is mad because her father was the guy that invented the adamantium bonding process and somehow died in something. So and she blames Wolverine. Like what? Did you get this? Like I don't understand how these are related whatsoever.
That's definitely what it is. Like she blames Wolverine for killing him as he left. So he definitely died, but Wolverine insists he didn't kill him. I think that he probably didn't. So who killed Dr. Cornelius? It's not like I care that much, but it is like a mission, a mystery in this episode. And it's also just one of those things like a superhero trope where it's literally just a misunderstanding.
Yeah.
It's literally just like, oh no, I didn't do that. Here, let's go find out what did. I'm a superhero. I investigate murders. Let's go check out this murder. And it's frustrating that nobody does that.
And
there's
this is the worst motivation for a villain too. Like just to be like, oh, you killed my father, and you're like, no, I didn't. Oh, okay, bye. Like,
yeah.
I mean, like, do a little research. Like, come up with some proof first.
Yeah.
Oh man,
it's super silly.
Yeah, it's not great. We go back to the present. Wolverine kind of is ambushed by the Reavers. He kind of says like, "Oh, I'm losing my touch" or whatever, but he kind of gets captured. Yuriko, Lady Deathstrike, tries to kill him, and the Reavers are like, "No, we got to use him first to get, you're not paying us this much. Like, we want that spaceship stuff." And she's like, "Okay, fine, my revenge can wait." And then this is where she explains all about her dad while like gesticulating at him constantly, like just waving her arms around all over the place and talking,
like cutting everyone's face.
I like Gambit and Jubilee show up, and here's how you know Gambit's a shitbag. Gambit and Jubilee see him get captured, and they're like, okay.
Well, first they fight, and Wolverine cuts off all their arms. And
he
cuts off their arms before he knows they're cyborgs. He's like, they're just tin cans, and just goes arm crazy. Like Wolverine just has arm party, 1993. And it's really phenomenal. Like he's a pig in shit, and I like watching Wolverine be happy. And like this is a good opportunity.
Doesn't cut off their heads or legs, which I think would be more useful.
It's just arms.
Just the arms. It's like he's got a cut off arm fetish.
It's very weird.
Yeah, it's weird, but yeah, he eventually gets captured, and Gambit and Jubilee follow him, and then because they're taking him to the spaceship, the Reavers are taking him to the spaceship. Along the way, Gambit and Jubilee discover the Morlocks, who are still alive. They're just still like netted up into this hallway, on the walls of this hallway. And Gambit says something to the extent of, "Oh, hey, we're not going to rescue him now. We'll come back later if we have time." And I'm like, wait, are you just going to leave these fuckers here? Like it's like you're a superhero. Save the innocents. Yeah, what are you doing?
Save the animals, Gambit. He does have a thing.
$10 to save the Morlocks from Gambit.
when he doesn't, he also does the thing too. He presents it as like Cajun wisdom, where he's like, "Nah, they are many, but we are but two." And it's very, very weird. Like his rationale here. It's weird because he gets a hero moment in this episode or next episode where he actually like holds them off. I think it might be the next episode.
Next episode, but that doesn't even last very long. And that's not anyway. Yeah. Oh man, Gambit is still the worst.
He's not doing great work in this series of episodes. That's 100% for sure.
They get to the spaceship. Wolverine wakes up and has another arm cutting off party, and then Jubilee and Gambit join in. And they for a minute I was like, okay, like the X-Men might just win this. Like this is going pretty good. But no, like they eventually like just win. Like they just get subdued.
It's actually a cool fight. Like Jubilee like blinds a bunch of people. Like people are doing kind of moves, which I like. And this is one of the spots where I was like, some of the animation was kind of good. In this, because it's not all bad. Like it's like they're just flexing to concentrate on action scenes. So Wolverine throws Deathstrike against the ship, which causes another blast, which then cut to Xavier screaming. But then he understands, like, oh no, this psychic thing is a warning not to open the ship, which Wolverine then does.
Of course, immediately. Just as soon as Xavier realizes, oh, we shouldn't do that, like smash cut to Wolverine doing exactly that.
It's pretty funny, but I have no idea why Wolverine's opening it. In this part, like things move kind of like life comes at you fast during these couple of minutes. It seems like they could have decompressed this a little bit and not had 3 minutes of review from an episode like 3 episodes ago.
So once he threw Deathstrike against the ship, she started getting like fried again, and this time like she's not
get her off of it.
Yeah. So, but he still like has some sort of romantic feelings for like every female that he's ever met. So he runs over there, and like his solution to this isn't to grab her and pull her off. It's to just like make 3 claw marks on the edge of the spaceship.
Yeah, it's how he plays basketball. It's how he does everything. He's like,
Wolverine, do you want to go play pool? No, I'm tired of paying for pool tables.
He's a triple issue voter. Like he's it's how he interacts with the world in general. And then we have our cliffhanger here because we're going into Out of the Past Part 2. I guess this would be the place to do a spotlight if we're going to do a spotlight this episode.
Absolutely.
These are the tales of the world.
Yeah, let's do Wolverine, since these are 2 Wolverine focused episodes.
Into it.
Here's a weird thing about Wolverine is that I genuinely like a lot of Wolverine. He's been so overused in so many things and in so many crossovers that it's kind of tiring to see him. Like the fact, especially in the movies where like he's like front and center in not only his own movies, but in also all of the X-Men movies, like he's always front and center for those. Like it just gets kind of, it wears you out. But like at his core, Wolverine's a cool dude. Mutant healing power, awesome claws, like kind of feral and weird, smoke cigars. Like he's a cool dude.
He's I like Wolverine a lot. I think he is a good team player and a shitty solo player. Like Wolverine doing stuff on his own with his like internal monologue of like hard-boiled kind of detective stuff, or his internal samurai monologue, like because he had a long-running solo series, that I read for a little while in the 90s. Yeah. But I don't like him in that context. I like him as kind of this side character who starts off as this real loose cannon, who is kind of unpredictable and kind of adds a little shade to everything, and then is now his kind of position where like then he kind of became this weird like, hey, I started out that way, but I've been here longer than everybody. Like I'm actually kind of wise. Like he led the X-Men for a little while. He became a teacher. I like that context of Wolverine a lot. I do not like his past in any respect. I don't like Wolverine origins. I don't like his samurai times. I don't really like, I like Alpha Flight okay, but I don't really like Wolverine's Weapon X tales.
That I'll disagree with you. Like when I was a kid, like all of that Weapon X stuff seemed so mysterious and weird. Like I just was so into the idea of like this like weird organization experimenting on mutants and giving like and obviously it fucked Wolverine up so bad. Like I thought that was fascinating. Now the more information they gave me about that, like by the time I learned that there was like a Weapon 13, like I was like, okay, I get it. Like you guys are creating like time storms in this thing, and that's what you're doing now. Like whatever. But like originally, like when I first started learning about that, the Weapon X program sounded cool.
The original like Weapon X comic, and we talked about this during that episode that this episode we're talking about now is recapped a bunch of times. I actually really like that comic as this weird kind of mysterious, moody, violent kind of like one shot thing. And like for a little while where it was just kind of those little like windows into things without explicit storytelling, I think it was better. And then as it got more fleshed out, more detailed, and it was like, oh, like he was actually part of this unit with Sabretooth and Maverick and like that guy who can shoot his hands off, whose name I can never remember. Then it gets more of a bummer to me. Yeah. Because he does like the idea, the X-Men need, because the X-Men, if they are, peace no matter what, and Magneto is peace at any cost, having some shade to that is actually very cool. Like having the one guy who's like, yeah, I'll fucking, I'm going to kill somebody so they don't kill somebody else, and like, I'm not going to do it because I'm getting kind of held back by my team, but that's my instinct, and it kind of makes him a cool character because he is fighting this internal urge to, not to be Magneto, because like to be a brutal Magneto. It's like non-smart Magneto, violent Magneto. And I can dig
punished Magneto, like you want to go the Metal Gear Solid route.
Yeah, he's liquid Magneto. He's liquid metal. He's Mercury Magneto. But the idea of having somebody on the team, so they're not literally all Boy Scouts who have that same kind of moral code that they all believe in. And whenever the X-Men does stuff like that, especially, at least in the era I've read, like I have no idea what's happening with X-Men now, but during the era that I read, that was extremely good. Like I was just very into having somebody on the team who is at least the voice of, because there's an argument for that. Like I am a principled nonviolent person, but there is an argument to like, hey, like it is possible that killing, Bolivar Trask, so he can't create literal like genocidal Megamax, is a good move, because if we don't, he's just going to come back. And that's not how the X-Men work, but it's it's not cut and dry, and having a character that represents that non-cut and dryness I think is really cool and good.
Yeah, it's and they play with this a lot too with Wolverine. Like they show his like the dangerous side of Wolverine while also showing like the protector side. Like we mentioned this like way back when when we were talking about Jubilee, about how Jubilee was one of like Wolverine's like protectorates or whatever, but like he likes to adopt these young women and these young mutants and to help them through trying times, which sometimes works out for him and then sometimes very much doesn't. Like there's I think it's the new X-Men that Grant Morrison wrote, where he like goes out to recruit Angel, and Angel just like hates him from day one. That's a lot of fun. I like
that's
that
really
stuff
good. Wolverine, like that's an arc that the artist, I can't remember the name of the guy, but like the bad artist in New X-Men, who's not like, he can actually do good work, but if you go to, I think I've talked about this, but Paul O'Brien, who is a comics critic who used to run a website called the X-Axis that I read all the time in my first job that I had internet at, that reviewed every X-Men comic, now does the only comic podcast I listen to, which is called House to Astonish, that I like a lot. He talked about that and talked about that artist, and it's like, it's undeniably pretty sloppy work, but he like showed up a lot of comparisons that artist can do good work. He just had to move incredibly fast because of scheduling things.
Sure. Yeah. Like, because they want to put out like 1 or 2 of those a month or whatever.
It's not even that. It's that they got so behind on other stuff. It's the other artist on the book being, because it was originally just supposed to be Grant Morrison and Frank Quitely the entire time, and Frank Quitely moves very slowly.
Yeah,
like I like Frank Quitely's art a lot, and it's beautiful, and you can see the result on the page, but it is slow.
Oh yeah,
to come out. So that artist, it's driving me nuts. I can't remember his name, but he, it wasn't his fault that arc looks like such shit. Where Wolverine goes and recruits Angel, but it's such good Wolverine. It's such good, like him, a subversion of him taking the, because there's those like traits of Wolverine, which is like a Japanese ex-girlfriend who's dead or a monster, Canada, and then taking like a young girl under his wing to train to be a ninja. Yep. Those are Wolverine's 3, like that's what he loves, and having this
reading, writing, arithmetic.
Yes, it's the 3 R's, real dead ex-girlfriend, really Canadian.
real Canadian whiskey.
Yeah, real Canadian whiskey, and
relying
really
upon
want
a
to teach
young,
you kung fu.
Really want to teach you kung fu.
Girl.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
But it was a really cool subversion of that, where like this is somebody who is not like just like, oh, Wolverine, like I'm instantly in love with you and trust you and everything. And somebody who's just like, yeah, fuck you, weirdo. Like you are literally a stranger who has come to my house. Like, why should I give a shit? And that's really phenomenal. Like, I love that arc. Every time we do this podcast, it just makes me want to reread New X-Men.
Yep. Every single time, because it's probably the best X-Men story. Like
it's my fave.
It's easily my fave. I'm not going to go out there and say it's the best, having not read every single possible X-Men thing out there. But like, man, it's easily my favorite to read. Right up there with Astonishing X-Men, which I think just is a really fun read as well.
Yeah, Astonishing X-Men is very good.
Also, a good Wolverine when Emma Frost turns Wolverine into a 6-year-old girl. that's a delight.
Second, it's that. That's probably good Wolverine stuff. But for me, it's like, stay away from the solo stuff. Embrace the team. Yeah,
if we didn't get that point across from covering the the last episode, like I hate all of anything having to do with his samurai past or the Japanese mob or the Chinese mob or whatever. Like like when he's like doing stuff with Yakuza and things, I'm just so checked out. I hate all of that stuff.
Yeah, man. Silver Samurai is going to show up at some point.
Oh man, that's another boring one. We're gonna have to do the movie at some point too, and he's all up in that movie. So
yeah, it's very rough. And there's a death strike in one of the movies as well. Like, you can't escape the Wolverine shitty past, much like Wolverine can't escape Wolverine shitty past. Where he's putting us in the same position he's in.
These are the tales of the
So moving on to S03E02, Out of the Past, Part 2. Yuriko's alien discovery, a Shi'ar vessel. Whoa.
Hold up. Excuse me.
Yuriko's alien discovery, a Shi'ar vessel, turns out to be a prison cell containing a voracious, gaseous prisoner, the Macran spirit drink.
Hold up.
Good sentence.
I have a question. I have many questions.
Please hold your questions for the end of this paragraph. The Macran spirit drinker. It immediately sucks the life out of Yuriko and her cohorts. Her like she's a freshman class.
Yep.
Yuriko's the Reaver and turns their attention to the X-Men. The X-Men must change their strategy to defeat an enemy they can't touch. Oh boy.
Yeah.
This is a more fun episode than the last one. It doesn't have the basketball scene, but there's more goofy team stuff. So like I kind of like this one a little bit more.
Some of this is good. Like we pick up right from where we left off. So like this thing blows out of the side of the spaceship, and the Reavers just immediately start shooting into it, like sight unseen. Their whole goal, I thought, was to capture this thing, but now they're just like, we're just gonna empty our laser fire on the inside. Like, who knows what we're breaking in there? But yeah, this thing just walks out, and it's like this green, gaseous, kind of invisible thing with tentacles coming out of his mouth, and the tentacles just reach up. It latches onto each of the Reavers, and it looks like they die. Like, it looks like they just immediately fall over dead.
Yeah.
They're not dead because this is a Saturday morning cartoon, and nobody dies but Morph. Yeah. Oh, wait. Morph doesn't die.
Yeah, he's not die. But again, just, they just know to shoot stuff. They're dipshits.
Yeah.
Wolverine gets out of there, and this is where Gambit actually does his sacrifice, where he's like, you go on ahead, and he distracts the monster. However, then Jubilee is like, no, I'm taking the bullet for Gambit. Like, you can't sacrifice yourself for a kid, Gambit. I, a kid, will instead sacrifice myself for you, Gambit. It's very, very weird. Like,
because it's not like I could see you throwing yourself in front of something. Like if Gambit had his back turned and this was going to be a surprise attack, and only but I've seen Gambit do multiple somersaults. Like, he should be able to avoid the tentacle. Jubilee, what are you doing here? Like, don't sacrifice yourself for Gambit.
Like, I would like, if Gambit had his back turned, I would sacrifice myself for anything unless he was about to take a drink that had been doctored, and that just feels like fair play to me.
Yeah,
I'm just kidding. That's not funny. But it is really, really silly for her to get tentacles zapped here, and it gives a sense of stakes. Like, again, these people kind of look dead at this point, but she's just unconscious. They pull her out of there. We switch over though to Wolverine and Deathstrike.
And they're having the first of many arguments about whose fault all of this is, which seemed like that goes on forever. Like, this happens 3 or 4 times throughout this episode, and it's just so boring. Like, it's your fault that you opened it. Or, no, it's your fault because you killed my dad. I didn't kill your dad. It's your fault for blaming me to kill your dad. Like, just stop. Just fucking stop.
Is this where he holds up Jubilee and is like, this is what your revenge
does? Exactly. I take a good look.
Yeah. And what is she going to give a shit about Jubilee? Like, she doesn't care about Jubilee. Like, you guys were fighting. Like, it's a very weird thing. Like, it's this is not Yuriko's what she wants. This is not appealing to her. There's no carrot or stick to this. We got to talk about this scene for a while though. This next one in the Museum of Modern Art.
Ooh,
this is. I feel like we've never got. I kind of half expected when we started really ragging on Beast that we get some backlash, because like, as a kid, I didn't hate Beast in the cartoon. Like, it defined the way I liked him in the comic. I think Beast is okay in the comic. Like, I kind of like Beast in the comics. He's fine. But on the show, he's pretty bad, and we talk about it. And I kind of expected some people to be like, "Oh, Beast is actually pretty good." And here's just like exhibit like F, really. But like, this is the nuclear option to like, you think Beast is pretty good? How do you like these apples?
This is,
look at this scene.
I use the word insufferable douchebag a lot when it comes to Beast. Like, I've used it every single time it gets brought up, basically. But boy, if I had known this was coming, I would have saved the insufferable douchebag comment for this. Because, wow. He's walking around, and it really, the way that they animate this and the way that they present it is like he has kind of captured this poor museum goer and is just like, beast-splaining to her about all of the different paintings in here. Like, he rags on Jackson Pollock. He says something like,
"Frankly, I've never been able to tell Jackson Pollock's paintings from his drop cloths, but Picasso holds a peculiar fascination for me. There's something so primal, so organic in his work. Don't you think?"
Yeah, so one, like, it's trying to make Beast seem smart because he knows who Jackson Pollock is. And then like a kid in the audience might be like, "I know who Jackson Pollock is. Like, I'm kind of precocious. That's pretty cool. Beast is smart." Saying you can't tell an abstract artist's art from like garbage is the opposite of smart. that is, if you can't tell one of Jackson Pollock's paintings from one of his drop cloths, Beast, is this like your first time exposed to art? Like, that is very, very much like art appreciation 101. Is understanding that abstract art is not an accident and seeing the ways in which it's not.
And it's such a weird thing because they present him in this cartoon, at least, like he's very much more of like a genius artist than he is a genius science. We've only seen him science once. And that was when we had to like look at Wolverine's like badass blood cells. You know what I'm saying? Like that was the only real science that this dude has done pretty much in the entire series. Other than that, he just reads poetry and gets put in jail. That's all he does. He's got no credibility whatsoever. Like all this pontificating and like, isn't he in like a tux or something? He's wearing something really dumb in this scene as well. And like explaining how Picasso is good to this poor woman who looks like she just wants to run away and die. Like,
it is it's like she's just reach into her purse and mace herself. It's such a like I don't know tons about art, but as somebody who knows like a tiny little bit about art, like it's exactly the opposite. Like this is such a deeply conservative attitude about art. Like, oh, like, you know, the recognized classics are really good, but modern art is trash and I can't tell it apart. Like my kid could paint that. Like that is a particularly like regressive way to think about art. And just it's really, really dumb. And why he came by himself. Like, why aren't you talking to your friend about this shit?
Because because number one, Beast does not have any friends willing to go with him to the art museum anymore.
Call that blind girl, dude.
Even the blind girl is like, I can tell a Jackson Pollock painting different than a
I could when I was blind. The Braille version of this is different. You big hairy sack of shit.
God, he is such a douchebag, Jerry. He's just so bad. It's so bad. Thankfully, Xavier is like, you know, now that this thing has broke out of the spaceship, Xavier is calling the team. So Xavier calls him up, is like, Beast, we need you. And Beast's exit strategy isn't to walk through the front doors; it's just to jump through the ceiling.
I love that.
Bye. See ya. Can't leave like a normal person.
You're out of your goddamn mind, Hank McCoy. I love that so much. It's you know, Xavier's calling people now. Like spaceship in the sewer wasn't worth the whole team, but anyway.
But yeah, something broke out of the spaceship. We'll go back to the sewers where Wolverine and Deathstrike are arguing and more time. Yeah. And then the monster breaks that up. This is where we get like a clue that like our people aren't dead. They're actually just kind of suspended in animation. Jubilee's face and it starts like appearing in the middle of this monster's forehead. This again, green, transparent monster's forehead.
The spirit drinker.
The Macron spirit
drinker. Yeah, the Macron spirit
I can't say
drinker.
That.
Everyone's favorite X-Men character.
I can't say that with a straight face.
Who's your favorite X-Men villain? Oh, the Macron
spirit drinker, obviously.
That's pretty cool. I like his Steve's good backstory.
Check out this trading card. He's got a power of 10.
You gotta put a picture of this thing on the website too. So people are listening to this, so they know what this thing looks like.
I've already took the screenshot. Like I did that last night just to make sure. Yeah, I didn't put it in the notes, but I definitely have one. That'll be the cover art for the episode.
When it displays its hologram of Jubilee to beg for help. It looks like a neon sign at like Eat at Jubilee's, you know, where like Jubilee's Casino or something like that. Like,
yep.
It's like a luminous neon monster. It's very, very weird.
So then we get to see Cyclops and Jean, who were enjoying
this is really good too.
Just a night off, just a little casual evening. By the way, Jean and Cyclops appear more in casual clothes than I think any other X-Men in this series, which I really enjoy. But they're just having like a little patio dinner at their favorite Mexican place with their favorite waiter Sydney. Who they name check Sydney for some reason.
I love Sydney. Sydney's my favorite supporting character.
Who's your favorite X-Men supporting character? Sydney, of course.
Sydney. Who's your favorite villain? Macron Spirit Drinker.
Spoilers. It's the same person. No.
Oh my god! No, Sydney. So they get their X-Men psychic call, and it's like this little comedy bit where Scout's like, "Sorry to break it to you, Sydney. We got to have our stuff wrapped up to go again." And Sydney looks all pissed off, and like, dude, Sydney's really weirdly overly rendered and everything. Like, he doesn't move, so he's well drawn, and it's very, very strange. And the idea of just like Scott being friends with Sydney. The thing it reminds me the most of, like, I don't know if are you a Simpsons guy? Like, are you Simpsons literate? Mm-hmm. You know when Seymour Skinner gets fired?
Yes.
From his job. And there's a part where like Bart runs into him at the laundromat and he's like, I might go down to the antique store, see if Gus is working. And like, we don't actually find out who Gus is, but that's what Cyclops' and Sydney's relationship is to me. Like,
they're not friends. It's just a place that Cyclops goes a lot to pretend that he has a friend.
Like, right? They're like kind of friends. Like there's some lonely guy who works somewhere in Cyclops, because Cyclops is very Seymour Skinner. Like comes and visits him and just kind of hangs out and chats him up, you know. And then that's what friendship is for Cyclops, because none of his teammates will talk to him.
Yeah, because I mean, they don't want him to, they don't accidentally say something that he's going to report back to Xavier.
Exactly. That's true. He's the elf on the shelf of like the, So they leave and they're just like, well, looks like we got into a mess again. Which I don't know. So we go back to the sewer. We just going back and forth between the sewer, the monster kind of coming up and kind of semi chasing them while they argue.
Yeah.
The Reavers are stuck in the monster, which pisses off Yuriko, and it happens right after Wolverine's like, don't you like says something like, don't you care about your team or something? And she's like, my team's fine or something like that. And then the Reaver ghost comes out immediately. And Gambit knocks a bunch of rocks down to buy them time.
Yeah, which, I mean, sure, whatever. Like, and even the cartoon calls out like, well, he's just already gone through a spaceship and several walls. Like, what are these bricks going to do? But nope, we're just going to buy us some time. Yeah. And Wolverine tells Gambit to like take Jubilee to safety, and then him and Yuriko are going to distract it because they have adamantium claws. And
Yuriko's cool with this. Like, he's just like, hey, Yuriko, here's your orders. And Yuriko, like, who wants to murder him, is like more or less just fine with it. It's very strange. Yeah.
Wolverine gets off some good lines around here about alien gutter trash and things like that I'll probably drop in here, which is always fun. So Gambit shows back up with the X-Men and Xavier. Well,
Yuriko gets taken. So
that's
they
right.
fight for a while. Yuriko gets sucked into the soul drinker, the Macran soul drinker.
Because it's going to be an important detail for something that happens in a minute. But when Gambit and everybody shows up and Xavier's there, like this is one of the few times that we see Xavier in the field.
Xavier.
So, sorry, I'm getting cracked up about something that's happening in the future.
Yeah.
Anyway, Jean tries to like read this thing's mind and is instantly like screwed up about it and hurts herself. So which pisses Cyclops off because everybody knows Cyclops has one trigger. It's not Jean. Tries to like shoot it, and Wolverine is like, no, our people are in there. You can't do that. So Beast and Xavier decide to leave, and they just lay Yuriko and Jubilee like on top of his ridiculous floating wheelchair. He's just taking out two drunk girls out of the party like he's a fucking bouncer.
With all due respect, Professor, can we use you as a wheelbarrow? It's extremely funny, and all this whole section is very weird because this is the Macran spirit drinker showing back up at this point, but it's just kind of hanging out and waiting for everyone to talk. It's very strange because they're not just like Jean's like, oh, I've touched its mind, it's darker than anything I've ever seen. Wolverine's like, this is Yuriko. She's my ex-wife. She wants to kill me. Everyone kind of has a chuckle. The Macran spirit drinker is just kind of watching along like, or something. And then the way that Beast and Xavier leave to go look at this thing is just like, there's a ship with some writing on it. And he's like, was it alien writing? He's like, well, it looked alien. Like they're asking Wolverine all these science questions and he's not comfortable with it. And then Beast is like, I believe I'll go check it out. And there's no sense of urgency of as if there's a big tentacle neon monster, like literally right next to you guys.
They just casually strolls away too. Like they're not like, they don't like run for it or anything, right? Like they just kind of
walking like, excuse me, Macran spirit drinker, like let me get behind you.
Can I get to the side a little bit? You're kind of just move over a little bit. Yeah, okay, I'm good.
It's very, very weird, and it's like the sequencing got mixed up. Like this should have happened after they collapsed the tunnel.
Yeah, I don't.
Like Wolverine and Yuriko should have fought earlier. Then they collapsed the tunnel. Then they have this time to do this talk and go investigate to defeat the monster. It's super strange. Like it makes no sense.
By the time Xavier and Beast get to the ship, like they go in and they see like its containment thing that's been broken open, which like also like did Wolverine's claws go 20 feet into this thing to break it open? Like what are you doing? But Xavier touches some of the like the internal signage and like gets zapped again, and then all of a sudden learns how to read like all of this stuff, and has this vision of like these crazy space stuff, which they never say the word Shi'ar in the series in the comic or in the cartoon yet. Like so that's all like just from the plot description that we read earlier.
That's coming next.
Oh yeah, we're about to get into some spacemans.
It's like, oh, this was a prison. This thing was sent into space to keep it far away from, never get out or whatever. But happened to land in our sewers.
At this point, Macron spirit drinker was just my father. Macron spirit drinker has gotten to he's getting topside. Like we've been kind of slowly but surely getting closer to the actual city. And by this time he's like broken into an actual like subway station, and he's attacking a subway car when the X-Men show up. Wolverine has this bright idea to like, you guys distract it, I'm just going to go claw it up, which does not work at all. Like, none of this makes a whole lot of sense. Like, he's like, oh, my claws can touch it, but I don't know, man. Like, none of this is really that great. Somehow or another, he cuts off a part of the tentacle, and the tentacle lands on the third rail and gets kind of zapped. And that's how that's when they realized that the incredible power of electricity is this one space monster's weakness.
Yeah, it's the one thing, electrical power.
For the one episode that Storm misses, like, she could have just solved this shit.
It's like how Iceman is the Omega Red's hard counter. Like, Storm literally could have just ended this in 2 seconds. But she was sleeping because she's not on a mission or anything. Yeah, she's in her weird Star Trek ambassador pajamas. So they're getting into this fight, and they're really trying hard to set up a sense of stakes. They're just like, if this thing get to the surface, ain't nobody gonna have a good time. And there's nothing there for it. Like, it doesn't, for an episode that's this fucking slow, or a pair of episodes, they've done such a terrible idea. Like, show the remnants of a civilization destroyed in space or something.
Yeah.
Like, show what the actual stakes are. Just like the X-Men just kind of turning to the camera and being like, no, this is a big deal if we don't stop this. It's pretty bad. I actually like the little quick thinking, the way Gambit, I call him Gambit.
Yeah.
The way Gambit destroys it by throwing his staff through it, which makes a like kind of a rod like that connects the third rail to it. I like it when anytime like a fighting person like thinks outside the box or does something creatively other than just throwing cards at it.
Yeah.
So I like that, and that returns everyone's spirits. It becomes the spirit vomiter, and just puts everybody back in their souls.
Yeah, and Jubilee wakes up. They have Wolverine and Yuriko have like a moment where he's like, I saved your life. And he's like, well, we're square for now, but I'm going to get my revenge. And then she leaves. Nobody seems very concerned about the Reavers.
Go to jail.
Why aren't you
put her in jail?
Why aren't you arresting her?
You're superheroes, guys. It also is just like a really shitty thing for the viewer because it's like, man, there's going to be another fucking Deathstrike episode.
Yep.
And there is. It's a season. Like we come back.
Oh,
so
good.
There's we are not done with shitty Wolverine backstory. I think Maverick even gets his highlight episode in Weapon X Lies and videotape at the end of the season. So,
boy, if you want a rabbit hole, by the way, like go look up TV shows who's had episodes named after sex lies and videotapes. Like, there's a lot of them. It's weird.
It's intense.
Xavier gets a bunch of space visions, which are pretty much just like foreshadowing at this point. And then at the end of the episode, like we see like the world, like we see like the world from space after seeing all this crazy space stuff. And like there's these, it looks like a actual like. It looks like a tape. Like, it looks like somebody recorded real fire and then overlaid it on this and then put like bad font, the Phoenix Saga, like on top of it.
Yeah, coming soon.
Yeah.
The Phoenix Saga. It's definitely real fire. It's real special.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it looks really bad now. Maybe at the time that looked kind of impressive.
I don't know, man. Like, I mean, like, like anytime you start mixing like real world stuff with animation, like I don't know, like it just always kind of looks weird. Like even Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which is like probably the best example of that outside of Cool World. Even Who Framed Roger Rabbit was a little like weird, and to have this, like, it just looks god awful to me. But it doesn't really matter. Like it's 2 seconds, so
And again, I am into the idea of doing the Phoenix Saga. Like I like the Phoenix Saga as a story. It's New X-Men is my favorite X-Men. There are other X-Men that are more modern. They're easier to read, I think. I like the Phoenix Saga. I like the stuff we're gonna go into with this, and the Dark Phoenix Saga I think is cool as well. Like I like the Hellfire Club. I like Dazzler. I like the Shi'ar Guardians. This is all stuff that I like.
This all really works. Stuff,
I think we're gonna get introduced to Black Tom Cassidy at some point, which I've always liked, is just like Juggernaut's little buddy.
Black Tom Cassidy is good. Eric the Red is going to show up. Which
Eric the Red's pretty good, actually. But but he's funny. So I'm into what we're coming into. What a shitty prequel for like what is going to be the like premiere event for this thing. Like this is the hype. Hey, this is like the classic X-Men story. Everyone's been asking for it. We're going to give it, but first, like this is how we're going to foreshadow it. We like. It's almost like they just felt like, oh shit, like we never talked about Yuriko.
Yeah. We meant to do that a long time ago. Which,
Like,
oh man, you ain't gotta. It's an X-Men. Like, it's not a Wolverine story. It's an X-Men story. You ain't gotta go through all the details.
Phoenix Saga is not a Wolverine story at all. Like, he doesn't even have a huge part in it. You know, it's a Jean Grey story who has not had a highlight episode.
She's barely been in a series.
Yeah, what she does is try to psychically scan stuff, gets overwhelmed, and passes out. That's like exclusively what she's done.
She her one moment of fame was way back when the Juggernaut destroyed the mansion, and she like lifted up a piece of wood and had like 8 nails and then nailed them all at one time. That was really cool. That was the best she's ever done. Way back in season 1. She
can carpent with the strength of 9 men.
Yeah,
that's what she can do so far. So give her something to do. Like, don't turn this into Wolverine's story, which like. Far be it, you know, me fall into stereotypical Duckfeed SJW stuff, but like, we don't need Jean Grey can have a story. Like, this does not have to revolve around the men around her, and like that's my fear. You know, it's been a long time since I watched this. That's not something I would have noticed when I was 14 because you know, it was 1993. But like, I really hope it just doesn't become like literally just Cyclops and Wolverine reacting to Jean Grey getting kind of imperiled.
Yeah,
you know.
And we're going to be the Phoenix Saga, as we mentioned at the very beginning of the podcast, is 5 episodes long. So for the next episode of this podcast, we'll be covering 303, 304, 305, which is part 1, 2, and 3. Sacrificed, The Dark Shroud, and Cry of the Banshee.
There we go.
Ones. Yeah,
there's Black Tom.
And then episode 13 will cover parts 4 and 5, the Starjammers and Child of Light. So that'll wrap us up on the Phoenix Saga, but that'll be our next 2 episodes if you want to watch along. And again, you can go to daysoffuturecast.com and there's a schedule link there that'll show you all of that.
Yes, and we encourage you to watch along with us. I think that's a fun way to experience the show. If you don't want to watch this children's cartoon from the 90s, you can also just listen. We really do appreciate that. What else can they do?
They can rate and review the podcast. They can go to patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv and maybe kick the network a couple of dollars so we can keep making great new shows and keep doing great new things. You get some cool features. Y'all have kind of rejiggered the Patreon stuff lately, but like even just like it's your basic stuff, you get like, you know, episodes early and you get access to the Slack and you get all kinds of cool stuff. So go check that out. But like the higher tiers are also very, very cool. I'm looking forward to being able to boss you guys around into doing Nier for Watch Out for Fireballs at some point. So yay for that.
Yeah, it is. It's going to be really good. I think, and we changed the Patreon. That's an evolving thing. Like that can change as well. It might change in the future, but when it changes, we change it to do cooler stuff and to kind of make it. You know, we like doing this and we want to do stuff, and everything we do is in service of that. You know, so yeah. So until next time, I think that's probably good. Jeremy, where can people find you on Twitter?
I'm at JG Greer on Twitter. Where can they find you?
Gary Buh, GaryBuh. Hit us up with your X-Men talk. And you can follow the podcast at DOFC Podcast at Twitter. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. And Facebook and things like that. That would be awesome if you did. And please spread the word. Let more people know about it. That is something concrete you can do to help the show.
Tell your X-Men friends. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Good night.